Welcome to Maine, we're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising, the paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking, won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie, groceries climbing, the gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow, but silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie. They're selling the lie. Say every voice counts, but watch who gets lifted. Some stories vanish, some get the spotlight shifted. Depends on what trends and what keeps them gifted. They're selling the lie. I won't believe them, I wanna believe, but truth's always stuck in between. Static and spin, drown the signal again. Nothing is what it seems. I wanna believe you, but every headline turns daylight into redesigned skies. Facts get twisted, context missing. We choke on the simplified alibis. Wanna believe you, but all I see is shadows where the answer should shine. The fact is fiction.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good evening, Maine. I'm used to saying good afternoon, so I get myself stuck. Good evening, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and I am the host of the Muddy Waters Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. As you all know, the Muddy Waters Podcast exists to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on in our state by interviewing people and telling stories that the mainstream media, whose job it is to inform the people, chooses not to share because they have become a propaganda arm of the left. I think it was funny. Steve Robinson was speaking at an event this last Friday in Portland, and he was talking about how what we all want actually is really for the rest of the mainstream media. We win. People like me, people like Steve, and Unquire, and all these other people that are out there trying to get the truth out. We win if the mainstream media starts doing their job, because that's all that we really want. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing these things, is that the people of Maine might be informed on what's actually going on. Unfortunately, we have to fight against this juggernaut of money from Soros-funded politicians to Soros-funded organizations like the mainstream media. So that's why we exist. And so today we're fortunate to have with us one person who's been fighting against the radical left in Augusta for the last 8 years. This will be your 8th year, I guess, right? Yes. Representative Joshua Morris.
Yes. Good evening, Chuck. Good to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And I apologize that I didn't say representative before your name.
Oh, that's the people that are in the upper chamber that care about such things. Those of us, we're the people's chamber in the House. So. Yeah,
that's fun. Well, I think it's funny. I learned early on that you can get in trouble if you don't use those like rep so and so or honorable so and so. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And look, I get it. Like we should be appreciative for sure of the people who are serving and trying to stand up for our interests and just doing the largely thankless task. You have more enemies than friends, really, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, if you're in the political, because of the entire other side doesn't like you, and many of your own side also doesn't like you because you're not doing
plenty of friendly fire.
Yeah. So I appreciate anybody, especially on our side, but anybody who's willing to go into public office and service for what they believe to be the good of their constituents and the people of Maine. So thank you for serving and doing, and especially during these past 8 years. It's
all with Janet Mills and Democrats in control of everything.
Yeah. So not easy. So tell us, before we get into, there's a bunch of things that I think it'll be fun to talk about. Pete Hegseth being around. I titled this episode "Incompetence, Corruption, and incompetent, corrupt, and beholden. I'm incompetent. Anyway, incompetent, corrupt, and beholden. Partly because I feel like that describes Democrat politicians in Augusta, not because you're that way. And I want to get into talking about some of the nonsense that they're pushing in Augusta. But before we do that, for those of not everybody who watches my show or listens to my show knows necessarily who you are, despite your 8 years of service in Augusta. So if you could just tell us a little bit about like who you are, where you come from, what possessed you to run for political office and continue to be in political office, and tell us all that stuff.
So I'm Representative Josh Morris. I reside in Turner, Maine. My family's been in Turner for over 200 years. I also represent the towns of Leeds and Wayne, and my dad came from over to Leeds. So, we have deep roots in this area. My grandfather ran a small store here in North Turner, Maine. It was one of those places everybody went to for the local gossip and get their coffee, and one of those, old time, local town places. That's where I first started taking an interest in politics, because I'd wait for the bus at his store, and the locals would come in. They talk about town politics, what's going on nationally. And my grandfather was, quite the character. He had quite a few, sayings that he said that I still use to this day. But he also served on the Board of Selectmen in Turner, served on the school board many years ago. I got elected to the school board when I was 21 years old. Was something I've always been interested in politics and in serving my community. And so the opportunity came up in 2018 that it was open. And, I wanted to make sure that at that time we'd had 8 years of Paul LePage. I felt Paul did a good job as governor. The Republicans, things were good economically, and I wanted to make sure that continued. Unfortunately, I've been there 8 years fighting against, leftist policies that has really taken Maine from the way life should be to a state of dependency and big government and honoring their special interest groups. As you said, there's a lot of incompetence, corruption, and beholden to, large, solar and wind and those sorts of things. But that's really what got me passionate about. I mean, I've been passionate about politics since I was a kid. It's something I was always interested in. I attribute it to waiting at the bus stop at my grandfather's store, going in there, and he and I were always close. He went to he and I used to go to local Republican meetings together, and he passed away about 5 years ago, but he was around for my first couple elections. And actually, the day I got elected was actually his birthday. The first time I got elected was his birthday. So certainly we were able to use that in the election, and he was very pleased with that. So I think, kind of family history here in this area, wanting to serve and continue to serve. And that's what made me get involved. And obviously seeing that Maine heritage of people like him, or my father, who was a contractor, seeing that sort of ingenuity and people who work hard and get up and go to work every day, and seeing that be not rewarded by Augusta politicians, but in many cases punished and looked down upon by Augusta politicians right now.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the party that used to consider themselves, I mean, they're definitely not, but but they used to be Democrats, the party of the people, the party of the working class, right? And now, that's obviously shifted, right? They don't really care about the people. They care about power, consolidating power, and advancing their agenda, no matter what the consequences, no matter how it impacts people. I can't imagine what it was like to be there when Janet Mills gave her State of the State, where she somehow made the comment that the problem with energy isn't that we're essentially that it isn't wind and solar. That's not the problem. The problem is that we're too dependent on natural gas.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah. Fossil fuels is what she said.
Right. Yeah. It's like,
it was,
nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it was all absolute nonsense all the way through. This reinterpretation. I mean, obviously she's doing it. She's running for the U.S. Senate, so it was a campaign speech.
I thought you can't campaign in the state house. I thought that was I learned this recently. I thought you can't campaign in the state house, and then obviously she did that, and then she's using video footage from that to advertise for herself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the election rules work on that. I know, I believe at the federal level that there are laws against, or at least that the House rules, I think, don't allow you to use like C-SPAN footage for campaigning purposes, either side. I don't believe there's anything like that in the Maine legislature. I don't think we have any sort of, there's nothing in our rules. And obviously the governor is a separate branch of government, so it would have to be in statute anyway. But I'm not aware of anything. I mean, we knew it was coming. We knew we know she's using this whole session to set herself up for her next campaign. That's what this whole session is about for her. Rather than governing or anything like that, it's going to be about making sure that, one, she's going to have a tough race against Graham Plattner. We're already seeing 100%. That play out. And then if she manages to get through that, she's going to have a tough fight against Susan Collins. So
yeah, everything. For Republicans out there, I would say, like, this is like anathema to Maine Republicans right now, but I'm going to say, like, the more we talk about Janet Mills, the more likely Graham Plattner is going to end up being the senator that represents us in D.C. Right. Scarily enough, I am concerned that he has the best chance of winning the Democrat primary. So the more we crap on her, the more likely we ensure that that's the case. I think I think Susan Collins has done a great job being who she represented herself to be. Again, there's the one caveat. She was only going to serve 2 terms. Okay, let that go. People don't know what it's like in Washington when they get there. They don't know how it works. And how it works is there's a seniority thing. And you could want to change that all you want. But in the current situation, because of the fact that we have one of the most powerful senators representing our state and bringing money into our state. We talked about BIW. Or we'll talk more about BIW, I should say, and Pete Hegseth's visit. But but the reality is a lot of money flows to the state because she's the chair of the Appropriations Committee. And so, like, I'm obviously hoping that she wins re-election, because I don't know that anybody else has a chance of winning. Like, if we had somebody try to primary her, I don't think they can beat her in a primary, obviously. And even if they could, I don't think it's possible for them to win a general because of the current state of where Maine is. And so, like, we need her to win. And because of that, like, I think the best case scenario, I think she could wipe the floor with Janet Mills. But I think Plattner's kind of concerning because, I don't know, for whatever reason, socialism motivates people to get out to vote. And it's not good, but the communist Nazi, is scary.
I mean, I think he certainly has. We've seen, similar to Trump. I mean, you look at Trump in 2016, it really wasn't a ground game that he had to speak of. He just was that good at activating the grassroots. People liked that he was different in what he was saying, a populist uprising. And it's the same thing on the other side. They're looking for their populist. And the fact that he is so much younger than Janet Mills. I mean, the one thing running against Janet Mills with Susan Collins is, you don't have, Janet Mills is older than Susan Collins. I mean, Janet Mills is going to be 80 years old shortly after being sworn in. Whereas Graham Plattner's, right around my age. He's younger than me, in his early 40s. And, he is a radical socialist. I still think Susan Collins can beat him because I don't see rural Maine wanting to come out for someone like him. I think he is too far left and too much of a wild card. But certainly he is a concern because he has shown an ability to draw crowds and activate a grassroots, and raise
substantial amounts of money. And he's charismatic. Like, he may not be a good person in real life, but he looks that way in front of the camera, and he speaks well. He says bad things ultimately if you actually analyze them and understand what he's positioning, but it doesn't matter to a lot of people. A lot of people see and they're like, oh, I like the way that guy sounds, and he's very masculine, and and I think, and he's young. I think, as you pointed out, he's young, and so that's frightening. But what the Democrats have been doing in Augusta has been crazy. One of the things that's interesting to point out too is, and this is where everybody wants to level it all at Janet Mills' feet, and I think there's plenty that can go there. But the reality is, like, she's been a check against the Democrats in Augusta. She's vetoed a bunch of things, and they've been mad at her about it.
Yeah, absolutely. She has been, the first few years that she's been in office, I mean, she has been very active vetoing some far left policies. I mean, I served on the labor committee, and all these, I can tell you, the person that she's probably vetoed more than anybody else, whose bill she's vetoed more than anybody else, is Troy Jackson, because Troy is very much you want to talk about beholden, that man is beholden to the labor unions 100%. He does whatever big labor tells him to do. And Janet Mills has been much more of a check on issues of big labor and so forth like that. So she hasn't been as progressive as some of the Democratic legislators in Augusta would have liked. And there's no doubt that has probably played a role in Graham Plattner's rise, that they want someone who's more progressive.
But I think what it also, and I think you're right, but I think part of the reason I bring that up and what it also like highlights and underscores is that Janet Mills, as much as we don't like her, and as much as I don't want her to win any seat, right? She's not the problem in Augusta. The Senate Democrats and the House Democrats, and like, again, the Democrat Party itself, and the way that it is driven so far to the left, skewed so far to the left, even when we got these polls out there that are saying Mainers, like, I know that this bill didn't pass, but it has nothing to do with what Mainers actually want. It has to do with the fact that the Democrats made people scared that something was going to happen that wasn't going to happen. Mainers want voter ID, right? Mainers want voter ID. Mainers want boys out of girls sports. Mainers want lower taxes. Mainers want a better, more affordable housing, more affordable, not Democrat affordable housing, but actual, in reality, housing that is affordable, because the Democrats haven't gotten in the way of all these things that need to happen. So the things that the many Americans want, they don't want transgender treatment of minors. They don't want abortion all the way up until birth. Like a lot of the 80-20 issues that we have, like the Democrats are on the wrong side of.
Yeah.
And that's a systemic problem within their party. It's not Janet Mills who's done that. She has basically been a politician who wants to keep getting reelected and wants her people to like her, and so most of the time aligns with her party. But I don't think she's an idealist.
Yeah, I don't think she's an ideologue in the sense of some of these others, but I mean, let's not forget, she was the one who championed the new abortion policy up till birth. She did sign the bill to allow for abortion to be funded by taxpayers, as well as mandated by insurance. She also signed the bill that basically allows your kids to transition without parental consent and allows kids to come here from other states for both abortion as well as gender changing care or altering care that they want without.
The word you're looking for is genital mutilation.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah. Not the nonsense that they use.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to find a word.
I think that when you affirm somebody's gender, you affirm that they are the sex that they were born in.
Exactly.
That's they use it. They twist words really well. But yes.
Yeah, they do. But yeah, I mean, but she would allow someone from another state to come here.
I'm not trying to let her off the hook here, right?
So I know
in a lot of things, but like the point that I'm getting at is it's the Democrat Party that is the problem there.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
In like whether it's like I was saying to you off the air is like part of the reason I called this incompetent, corrupt, and beholden is because like I can't think of any other category. Like it would seem to me that every single Democrat, and you could argue, as I said, like I kind of take some crap for this sometimes, where I'll say like, yeah, we got some problems on the Republican side too, and I think we do, right? Mm-hmm. But I think when I look at it's obviously much more pronounced. It's actually like there are some people on the right that you could say this about. I don't think I can think of, maybe you work there, and I don't think necessarily you want to name names, because then you'd have to not name other people. But like, I don't think I can think of somebody on the Democrat side that I've ever that doesn't fall into one of those three categories. And I think there are some that we could argue might fall into all three of those categories, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't push a climate agenda and be competent.
No. I mean, and that's what it is. I mean, it's an agenda, and that agenda is really funneled by out-of-state special interest groups that want to be able to continue to put these eyesores of solar panels up all over the highway, in your backyard, all these places, and that's what they're beholden to, because they have been getting campaign contributions from them. And I think what we have seen in terms of it is the way that the Democratic Party in Augusta particularly is complicit is the way that we have seen them, that they make sure on these big important issues that they have their votes. And if somebody is thinking about straying from the path, they have ways that they intimidate, that they cajole, that they will punish anybody who dares to stray from the path. I was there when they passed this abortion on demand all the way up till birth came up. It passed by one vote. And that was because the speaker held the vote open until everybody was there and they could get the votes they needed. I've seen them hold votes open and bully their members to hold to change their vote. That's part of why the term before I came in, one of our members recorded on their cell phone them doing this to one of their members. And now guess what? We're not allowed to record anything in the chamber with our cell phones. It's not because of anything. It's because they're trying to tamp down on transparency. They don't want us. Yeah. They don't want the public to see this stuff going on. And the only way that it can be done is by us exposing it. And they want to make sure that that's not exposed. This is the corruption of Democrats in Augusta.
100%. Yeah, it's wild. What's fun too is, like, we talked about, like, I think maybe out-of-state money came up a little earlier, and I wanted to highlight something about the Democrat Party that I think, obviously, they're the biggest gaslighters in the history of the universe, right? Like, and so they there was a post. Actually, I don't care. Like, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but I don't really care that much. But there's a post that I think it might have been Bobby Charles put something out related to Garrett Mason, because I think the word on the street is he's got a bunch of money from an out-of-state donor that's supporting his campaign. And the Democrats are like, and Bobby's like, anyway, calling him out on that. And what's interesting is, like, so the Democrat Party, well, anyway, so so the Democrat Party makes their own post. So on their post, you see that it says, the gloves are off in the Republican primary. We disagree with Bobby Charles on nearly everything, but he's right about one thing. Maine doesn't need anti-choice, out-of-state, MAGA billionaire money. And I just think that is hilarious, because the only problem with that is the MAGA part. Like, they love out-of-state billionaire money. What are you talking about? They're entirely funded by Soros.
Yeah.
But it's gaslighting, right? It's like, they know we don't like out-of-state money in general. Although, to be completely honest, where I'm coming from, like, if somebody can help us take back our state, I don't care where the money comes from, right? Like, like, especially knowing that there's so much money that's coming from out of state on the Democrat side, why would we handicap ourselves and ignore what's coming on the other side? But not to be critical of Bobby or anything like that, and that's not the point to bring that up, but more to bring up the hypocrisy there of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have certainly benefited from large out-of-state donations. I mean, they were critical. They were hypercritical of Laurel Libby because she was working hard raising money, and they didn't like that they were then spending it in legislative races. They don't like it, like you said, when they call out their hypocrisy, or when the money is used against them. Then all of a sudden it's dark money and it's bad. But I can tell you, my first two campaigns in the general election, I was outspent 2-1. Them trying to sell a former state legislator to come back into this seat, and it was all funded by out-of-state dark money. A lot of stuff from the Maine People's Alliance. That is nothing but a dark money group. that promotes collectivism and socialism and communism and big government. They're an NGO for the big government cabal that is the left wing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like right now we have big state out of state money. I said this earlier, right? The news is all owned by, like out of state big money, people like Soros funded. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so most of the media here in the state of Maine is owned by out of state people who are trying to influence us. So I'm okay with somebody like trying to even the balance a little bit and give us a chance, especially because we have to push back. If the people of Maine actually understood what was happening, right? I think there's a bit of disbelief that things are as corrupt and bad as they are in Augusta, because how's that possible, right? There's this element of a certain segment of Americans that think, oh, that's not possible. Or like, oh, I'm sure the Democrats are bad, but I'm sure the Republicans are bad too. So I'm just going to count them as being equal and just ignore that. And the Republicans, really, they're the real bad ones because they're always angry, right? But again, a lot of people don't even realize how impacted they are by the media, even if they think that. And this is one of the dangerous things. If you're not conscious as you're watching movies and watching television and listening to the news of the biases that exist within those, you will be influenced by it without even noticing it. I am hyper focused and paying attention to this stuff. I'm not saying I'm completely impervious to it, but anytime I'm watching like a TV show at this point, I'm like looking for the ways in which they're going to try and poison the well. Right. Because I know that it's there, especially in like Apple TV and that kind of, they're one of the wokest. I don't think they can do a TV show that doesn't have something to do with LGBTQIA plus, or taking a historic show or a book or story that had white characters and we got to replace them not just with women but with black women. So not just black but black women, right? And there's this like you pay attention to that stuff, but a lot of people don't even realize they're being influenced by it, and so we have to overcome all of that. So if we get some extra money to help us in election, that's great.
Oh, exactly. I mean, look, you can watch. I mean, when you watch the news now, I mean, Channel 6, for instance, they have the Maine Monitor on regularly to discuss their stories. It's like the Maine Monitor is a left-wing organization that is pushing. I mean, they don't have the Maine Wire on with Steve Robinson.
I met a guy from the Maine Monitor, and he said they're nonpartisan. So they're nonpartisan.
Right.
Well, this is why, in addition to agreeing with a lot of their reporting, this is why I love the Maine Wire, because they're openly saying that they have a conservative bent, right? They're not hiding it. They're not lying about it. But everybody on the left is like, no, we're not being partisan. We're just giving you the truth, unfiltered.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is a compliment when I say this of the Maine Wire. What I appreciate about them is, you're right. They do have a conservative bend, and they're also a little bit of the gonzo journalism, which I appreciate. I love gonzo journalism because it's absolutely ridiculous to pretend that you can completely remove yourself from a story or be completely objective. I think he gets the facts out there, and he certainly they get the facts out there, and they certainly talk about their part in this story. I mean, I appreciate it personally. I mean, I think it's great journalism. I enjoy reading their stuff. I mean, he has gone after Troy Jackson. You want to talk about someone being in all three of these categories: incompetent, corrupt, and beholden. That is Troy Jackson to a T. And Steve is one of the few in Maine. I think he's the only one in Maine that has called him out for his shenanigans and his just absolute corruption and what he has done to this state with his position of power, all while pretending to be for the working man.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine what it's like to go in there day to day and work with those people. But let's talk about like some of the so like every year there's more nonsense that they bring to the table because they've got to find a way to take in more money in tax revenue so that they can have a surplus to try and buy votes. or just because they've got more special interest groups that they've got to give money to that they're not auditing and all that other, like these nonprofits. Nonprofit used to have a good meaning, and it's been destroyed by all the fraud and corruption and just like misuse of funds, even if it's not technically. I guess that's where the waste, fraud, and abuse. So I guess that would be the waste side of it. Where these organizations, and I would talk to, there was somebody who had reached out and they were like, this is a great groundbreaking. And they were like talking about some organization and how they, would get a grant of a certain amount of money and they would use most of it, but there would be some left. And they would be like, hey, how can we spend this? Like, as though this was like a surprising piece of news. And it's like, no, like, have you seen The Office? They teach you how to do this in The Office. Whereas, like, if you have a lemonade stand and it costs $9, do you tell your dad that it costs $9, or do you tell your dad that it costs $10? Because if you don't tell him it costs $10, he's only going to give you $9 next year. Anyway, Michael's like, explain it to me like I'm a 3-year-old. But like, this is how everybody who gets a grant for money or something along those lines is going to behave. They're always going to find a way, even if they don't need something, to use that money because they don't want to not get it the next time, right? And so that's not surprising. But anyway, all the nonsense that they're doing, I'm curious, like, what are the crazy policies that they're trying to push now? Like, what's coming down the pike? What are they proposing this year?
Well, I mean, it's obviously early in the session, so we haven't seen everything. I mean, I think we heard the governor's state of the state address. There's plenty of crazy policies coming out of there. The $300 chance to buy the election, when if you want to actually help working people, you'll lower their taxes. You won't tax their tips. You won't tax their overtime. That's a way to actually help working people, as opposed to giving them $300 checks. And then also the $250 million to Planned Parenthood as a buy-off. Some of the other crazy things I've heard this year.
That's just where did that come from? To how much money?
I think it was $250 million, because the Trump administration has cut the money to them through the
250 million, or is it 250,000?
I can't, or maybe it was only two. I'd have to look. But I know she's proposing giving a lot of money. It may not be quite that much. Maybe
matter.
2.5 million. I think it was 2.5. I know it was 2.5 somewhere. It's more money than it should have been. Maybe it was
like it should have been zero. I don't think
it should be zero. I mean,
I don't think there should be taxpayer-funded abortion, right?
It's money to Planned Parenthood that they're losing through the federal government, is what it is. I think I got the number mixed up. It's I think 250 million is what the part of the supplemental budget, but I know part of it is going to Planned Parenthood.
That's wild.
And I mean, again, it's just her paying back her left-wing allies, trying to show she's the most woke progressive on the issue of abortion. She certainly wants to make sure that women that are voting in the Democratic primary know that she has been taking care of the issue of abortion, that she's going to make sure that Planned Parenthood is well funded and taken care of, and that's what they're looking to do. And these are some of the crazy policies. Then some other crazy policies are obviously one thing that I've heard coming out of the Labor Committee is they want to give the Department of Labor the ability to subpoena businesses for when they are doing their investigations on some of these labor violations and the PFML and all that stuff. They want to give the Department of Labor the ability to subpoena businesses to come testify on these, on some of these accusations of violations and things like that. I'm not entirely. I heard that from some of the guys that are on the Labor Committee and some of the guys in the business community. I mean, it's just, these are the crazy policies. I mean, it's a very anti-business party on the other side of the aisle.
It really is. It's they've already done a lot. I mean, and I think what's interesting is there should be a time where they're trying to win an election, so they should be trying to tone it down. But it seems like that's not happening. Did you see the? I say this as I don't know, but I know. But did you see the thing circulating about the proposed tax, or the proposed forcing registration? lawnmowers. Did you see that one?
I did see that one. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. And I had people that call me and ask me about it. And I mean, it's not true. But the
Right.
thing is, I would not have thought a few years ago that there would be a town like South Portland, a city like South Portland that wants to ban gas-powered lawnmowers. I wouldn't have thought that we'd be trying to tell people that they have to buy car dealerships, that they have to sell so many electric vehicles when there's no demand for them in Maine and there's no infrastructure for them in Maine beyond that. I wouldn't have thought a lot of the crazy policies that have come out of the Democratic Party. So it's not a huge leap that they would want you to register your lawnmower or your snowblower or anything like that. They may not be proposing it now. My big fear is some Democrats looking at that saying, that's not a bad idea. Why haven't we done that yet? It's a good way to raise money. You know, I mean, it's a good way to control people. We have to control every aspect of their lives. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, they're not doing it. I have not seen a bill, but when I read it, I believed it myself. I said, "Holy, what committee is that going to? Who is the sponsor?" And this is just crazy. But it's just, that's how bad things are in Augusta, that there are people up here. There probably are people on the Democratic side of the aisle that are like, I'd vote for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing that's the thing for me is I saw it and I thought, I don't think that's real. Right. But it might be, but it's believable, right? It was believable. And so like I kept an eye on it and then eventually I saw that I had heard through the grapevine or something that Representative Laurel Libby had said that, oh, no, that's not real. And I was like, okay, that makes sense that it's not real, but it's so believable, right? It is a stretch from where we are, but not a big stretch. And given all the insane things that they've done over the course of the past, 8 years and really going back specifically really to COVID. I think a lot of things in our world has gone crazy since COVID. I was just like, this is possible. I could see.
I mean, I wouldn't have believed that they would actually encourage you to tattle on someone because they weren't making you wear a mask when you went into a store, or go shut down somebody because they were open and they had their people voluntarily working. They had people voluntarily going to the restaurant to eat up at Sunday River, and Janet Mills made sure that she sent her people out there to take his license away, because how dare you defy me, the Queen of Maine? I mean, it's hilarious for her to sit there and say no kings and shake her fist in the state of the state. What was she during COVID? I mean, she tried to be the Queen of Maine.
Well, Jar Jar Binks voted emergency powers to the emperor. Right. And so that's what, and we knew that was, it was bad, right? Why did we do that? Right. But I mean, I obviously joke and I make the Star Wars reference because as soon as I heard emergency powers to the government, I was like, what are we doing? Have you not seen Star Wars? Do you not know that this is a bad idea? Right.
Yeah.
And especially putting her in a position where she, at her own discretion, without any approval from anybody else, could just continue to extend those powers in perpetuity. Like, that's like, what in the world are we thinking where we think that's a good idea? And obviously she didn't do good things with those, right? There were so many different mistakes and stopping me from doing and I think this is one of the things that I think about, and this goes at Nirav Shah, who was with her. He's in the gubernatorial, people whose family members died, elderly people who died alone without being able to see their loved ones in a hospital or in a nursing home because they had policies that wouldn't allow their family members to see them in order to protect them. And so these people got to be in despair and agony and empty and alone. Businesses were destroyed, and they're continuing to be, all for the name of trying to save people's lives. And look, I'm all for trying to save people's lives. That's not what I'm against. But you have to, first of all, you have to let people make their own decisions. Number one, this is a country of freedom. Freedom ceased to exist when that happened for some reason. But also, you have to do it based on science. And we know now, and people who were paying attention knew then. And I was one of the few, I think, in the early days who was like, this is not following science. I was very read up on the statistics and the data, and like it was not mapping out, and yet they pushed it anyway, destroyed people's lives. And many people in Maine, I want to comment on this because I don't think it's getting enough attention. A lot of people in Maine don't realize that we didn't really fare better than anywhere else, right?
No.
Because the media, and this is where we get at the problem with the media in Maine, the media stopped reporting on it the moment the data started to go bad.
Yeah.
They stopped
Absolutely.
doing the daily and weekly or whatever updates as soon as the data started to go bad. So the average person doesn't realize that we actually did not fare substantially better than other states that had our same demographics and our same, like we're a rural state. That's one of the reasons that we did well early on, just because we're rural. There's not as much like moving around, contact, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It wasn't the policies. And so anyway, people miss that. And I apparently it's a hobby horse that I feel like I need to keep hitting. So there it is again.
No, you're right. I mean, look, one state that doesn't really have our demographics but fared very well during COVID was Florida. They didn't completely shut down. They were one of the places people were going to. Now, obviously, the weather's different down there.
Sure.
With people being able to get down there and get outside in the sun and all that stuff. But still, they didn't completely shut down. Now, some of their business, some of their tourist areas, may have shut down, may have made the decision on their own to shut down for a period of time. But the state of Florida didn't mandate anything, didn't completely force businesses to shut down and force businesses to close. And many organizations decided to hold their conferences in Florida because Florida was one of the few states that wasn't going ridiculous with trying to do all this ridiculous social distancing and keeping people apart. And as a result, Florida is one of the strongest economies in the country and has continued to be. But then, as far as states with our similar demographics, I mean, New Hampshire, they certainly were cautious, but Sununu did not go to the extent that Janet Mills did, or Kristi Noem in I believe she was South Dakota, didn't go to the extent that Janet Mills did. And we've seen what's happened in Maine with COVID. We've seen the sort of the businesses in rural Maine close and many businesses struggle because of Janet Mills' policies and Janet Mills' decision to shut down the economy. But I think to your point, you're right. The media didn't really tell that story. Wasn't really interested in telling that story. They were interested in all the, oh, isn't Dr. Shaw so wonderful? He's a hero, narrative that was there, which is just utter baloney. I mean, he was, for me, the thing with Dr. Shaw that irritated me early on was how he had time to go do a media hit every day and get his face on TV and talk. But when legislators wanted to sit down and have briefings with him, all of a sudden he was too busy. I mean, the people that are actually elected to represent and actually are hearing from their constituents and the people themselves, that are going to ask him tough questions, he was too busy. And the same thing, by the way, happened with the Department of Labor. Laura Fortman refused to sit down and talk to the Labor Committee the second time because she was doing a horrible job with the increased unemployment. There were people that were calling every day that couldn't get through, that weren't getting their unemployment benefits, that were told they couldn't go to work, but then they couldn't get through and they weren't able to make any money. I mean, it was an absolute disaster all the way across. And the governor did not want to be accountable, and she refused to make her people be accountable too. It's a disaster. If you want a lesson in corruption and cover-ups, look at Janet Mills and her response to COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Shanna Bellows in elections. Right. But
this is actually another good point that Shanna Bellows was the chair of the Labor Committee, and she sat there on Zoom and she virtue signaled and said Laura Fortman should be here and answering our questions. It's wrong that the governor won't make her available. And now where's Shanna when we have questions for her before the Veterans and Legal Affairs people have questions for her? She's all of a sudden, she can't be bothered to go testify and talk about it.
Yeah, well, she did go and testify. She didn't talk about that one, but didn't she testify more recently and or recently talking
Yes.
about how there are no non-citizens voting in elections, despite the fact that the Maine Wire has done a really good job at continuing to push out the video of her literally saying that there are
Yeah.
probably some non-citizens voting in elections. So she admitted that she knows that it's happening, which I'm not saying that I drew this out, but her comment on that became really popular shortly after I had a podcast where I had a guy who worked at Portland and then Lewiston Adult Ed saying he had asylum seekers who weren't even able to work, who were getting
Yeah.
ballots in the mail in Lewiston, right? So like we know that this is happening, and then after her saying that, she goes before what committee was it? Judicial?
Veterans and Legal Affairs.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
Veterans, and said that it's
yeah.
not happening.
Right. She told, David Boyer, Representative David Boyer, asked her about it point blank, and she denied that she even said it.
It's like it's literally recorded and it's been played for everyone to see. Like what are like this is like people of Maine. We cannot let these people get away with this, but this is how the Democrat Party is treating you right now. They're literally saying one thing on a recording that's been popular, that's been pushed out there. It's everywhere if you want to find it. And then they're saying it didn't happen.
Right. Oh, exactly. And that's what Shenna's doing. Yeah. And that is what Shenna has done. I mean, that's, again, I mean, I served with her on the labor committee. She was I mean, this is she would certainly make deals with us or make agreements with us, and then she would go back on it. I will say that as far as it goes, as far as her managing that committee, there was decent feedback, at least from the people testifying, that they at least felt that she gave them a fair shot to be heard and that she wanted to allow them to be heard. But she went with every far left policy that she could, and every chance she got, she had the virtue signal about her time working with the about how progressive she was and how liberal she was and how tolerant and all that she was. And I mean, that's Shenna.
It's funny. So I think about people like Shenna, and there are other people in politics that are bad that I don't like. But I think of her, and I'm reminded of Steve Carell. I know I brought him up earlier, but Steve Carell's character in The Office, when he was going to pretend to jump off a roof onto a trampoline, and he's up there pretending like he's going to jump, and then he decides that Daryl is basically talking to him to try to talk him down, and he makes this comment, and I think it's a very true one about Shenna, and it makes it like Shenna is way braver than me because she's got to get up every day, and she's got to be her. And as Daryl was saying this to Michael Scott, but he's like, I'm not that brave, man. I'm like, I'm not that brave. Like, I kind of in a way feel bad for her because this is just who she is day in and day out, and every day she has to get up and continue to be her. And it's sad that that's who she has chosen to be and the path that she has taken. And like she falls into again, similar to you said about Shirley Jackson, she falls into the category, all three of the categories we're talking about today, like incompetent, corrupt, and beholden. She is all three of those things, and it's evidenced by all this, like obviously the idiotic mistake she made of saying that out loud in an interview, and then lying about it in another interview, essentially. And like, it's and obviously she's beholden to special interest groups and all that kind of nonsense. But it's just sad that this is who people end up being. So it's not good. It's sad to be her, but yeah. Anyway, so going on, I want to shift a little bit because today was a fun day in some other ways. I've seen some videos, and I want to play at least one of them of some of the nonsense that happened out because Pete Hegseth was here in Maine, I don't know if this was we had started the podcast or not, if we how much we talked about, but like, who is against like bringing jobs and money and opportunity here? Who would be against that? Except we'll just throw Graham Plattner under the bus because we know he's a socialist, and socialists don't like businesses. So the Democrat Socialists of America and it must be part of this. But there's some fun stuff that happens. So let's play a couple. Go ahead. Before I do
just
that.
one thing. No, just because we were talking about Shanna Bellis is a good segue on this. When she ran against Susan Collins in 2014 for the U.S. Senate, and one of the things she said about Bath Iron Works at that time was they need to transition to sort of peaceful production and productivity, and not all the warship building and so forth. That was one of her statements back in 2014. So I mean, this is a woman that's got to fight for me.
It's so nonsensical. All right, so let's look at this. This was one interaction at the protest of Pete Hegseth being allowed to be in Maine. That seems like that was what they were protesting, but. That's one. Here's another one, just for fun. Let's go here.
Come on, we need something catchier. Let's do something like we're not loonies. 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 What we need.
You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's as if they don't know that all these phones have cameras on them now.
Well, and what's great is we have some people are openly on our side in those, and some people are more crafty and are able to infiltrate. But like, it's just wild, all these people that are protesting against the fact that like the head of the Department of Defense, and I know that we're calling him the Secretary of War now, but like the idea that he's in town and visiting one of the best sources of jobs in the state of Maine. Ultimately that's the reality. And they're protesting that. This is good for us. Like, this is actually really important for our economy. Why would you protest that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. They're loons. They're loonies.
We're not loonies. There's
a reason they don't want to chant that, because it's just not true. But I mean, it's just because I have constituents that work at Bath Iron Works, even up here in Turner, Leeds, Green, and all the way down through. All the way throughout Androscoggin County. I have an uncle that has worked for them for many years. I mean, it is an important piece of our economy. Bath Iron Works, they're a good paying job, and the more contracted work that they have, the better it is for our economy, because all those people spend money throughout Maine. It goes back into the economy. And by the way, that's another group that would benefit from if we did federal tax conformity on no taxes on overtime. That would benefit the Maine economy. That's going to benefit the Maine economy a lot, that they're not having to pay federal tax on overtime. But if we could get Maine government to conform to that, it would benefit our economy all the more, because those are folks that will spend that money going to restaurants, going out to eat, going to shopping at local retail stores, all those places. And, unfortunately, it's something that the governor and the Democrats in the legislature have no desire to do. They don't want to see money back in Maine people's pockets. And, I have the people that work at Bath Iron Works are the middle class of our economy. They are the ones that are the backbone that the Democrats say they represent. They are the backbone of the economy.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's hard to believe how we got into this place, and how I think the biggest thing is not that some people said some crazy things, but that now that they're that it's so obvious. Like, we see the data, we see what's actually happening, but they don't back down. They don't say, hey, you know what, actually we're right, maybe we should take, like, let's say, for instance, that you actually believe that solar panels and wind power and alternate, like, other forms of energy, right, are better than natural gas. Let's say that there is a legitimate environmental concern. Still, you have to recognize that you can't bankrupt your people to get there. How many people have to die, right? How many people do have to lose their jobs, not be able to heat their house, all that kind of stuff? And you have to recognize that a different approach needs to be there. Even if those are part of the solution of the future, we have to get them to be much more efficient. We have to make sure that the supply chain that creates them, right, doesn't burn more fossil fuels than just burning fossil fuels in the first place, which is the current situation, right? Like, maybe after, right, like the reality is, when you look at the full supply chain, especially with, like, a lot of, like, the batteries and stuff like that, what do we do with them after we can't use them anymore? It's like, don't put them near anything you want to have live, you know? And so, like, there's a real serious concern environmentally with the thing that they're saying is environmentally better. And so, like, it's so baffling that none of them are able to back down. And it just that's why you look at it and you say, this has got to be a cult, right? Like, that's more what the Democratic Party has become. And so, anyway, that's just an aside. So, before we like kind of go, because we've been going for almost an hour now, and I know from being on a show with you for 2 hours, you're there for 4 hours, but I come in for 2 hours. That we can talk for a while, but but you're obviously that you're in your 8th year, your final term of your 4th term, 8th year, and so you're termed out of the House. And for those who maybe don't know, because Maine politics is a little different, termed out, you just have to have at least one term where you're not in the House, and then you could run for the House again if you wanted to. And so, like, and you could jump back and forth between the House and the Senate, and a lot of people do that. And so, now that you're termed out, what are you doing next?
I am a candidate for the Maine Senate here in the State Senate District 17, which runs from Livermore Falls, my hometown of Turner, Leeds, Greene, Wales, Litchfield, Sabattis, Fayette, and Lisbon. So I am running for that seat. As you know, I've been working on a lot of these important issues, like the paid family medical leave, to a lot of health insurance issues. Those are the committees I've been serving on. So I've seen a lot of the really bad stuff that they've passed over the last 8 years that hopefully we'll get a chance to repeal. But, we need people that are going to continue to fight for the business community. That's been something that's been, my passion over the last 8 years, having served on those two committees, because we deal with a lot of issues that are important to business, their labor costs and their healthcare costs, two of the biggest costs that businesses have. And I've seen what the Democratic policies have done to raise those costs. And so I'm committed to doing what I can to, one, I'd love to repeal the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, to repeal the payroll tax and go to a more common sense voluntary system. I think businesses want to provide these services to their employees. It's just a matter of being able to afford it, but also giving the employees what they actually want. I mean, I think a lot of employees would prioritize making a higher wage and having more vacation time, having good healthcare benefits, and certainly they want to be able to make sure that their job is going to be taken care of and that they can get some income, and if they need to go out on a medical leave situation. But the way that Maine is doing it, taking taxes out of them every week, is not the way to do it. And, that's why I'm running for the state Senate for the next 2 years. And hopefully I'll have the chance to continue to serve. fight with
and
a
so
Republican governor next year.
fight with the fight
Alongside the Republican governor. That's what. Yes.
we need to be clear about what we're saying here.
Yes. Fight along with, not with them. And not fight. Not have to fight Democrats and Janet Mills for the next 4 years. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, fortunately, Janet Mills, at least in the legislature, we're done with her, so don't have to worry about that anymore. But hopefully, we don't get one of her minions, or add allies for many years.
Well,
which is what our options are on the Democrat side. So we need a Republican to win.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, Troy Jackson was no ally of Janet Mills. He would be worse. As bad as
an ally and not an ally, right? Like obviously a far left, but like he's also on the same team. You know what I mean? And
right.
And
he was complicit with a lot of her stuff. I mean, but there were things where we talked about Janet Mills having been some restraint on them. He was one of the ones that needed to be restrained. If he is governor, there will be no restraints. Him, Shenna Bellows, there will be absolutely zero restraints upon the Democrats and what they want to do. It will be even worse if that is imaginable.
Yeah.
It can be.
No,
worse.
I can imagine, and that's the thing is I can imagine. Unfortunately, I hear about things like I'm familiar with what happens in actual communistic societies, and even though America is a social, we don't necessarily think of ourselves this way. We think of ourselves as being capitalistic. We've gotten to a point where we're a bit of a crony capitalistic society. A lot of like the corporations owning. The national reps and having some impact locally as well. But we also have a lot of socialistic policies like Social Security, and it's anathema for anybody to suggest that maybe we need to back off on that. But I'm willing to do that. But we have a lot of things that we do in our society that are very socialistic, and it's frightening how much further we're moving in that direction. To the point where somebody who I think is a very strong conservative made the comment that like, well, in order to make sure that we can win, because we know we got to get those votes, we should not repeal the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, but basically fix it. And it's like you can't fix it. But this is the thing is we're tempted to go like, and this is one of the critiques that is sometimes made of the Republican Party is that we do what the Democrat Party does, only slower. And but we need to actually present, and I think like repealing paid family medical leave is part of that. I get the words out, but actually present an alternative, rather than a slower version. And like the reality is we're all about empowering people. When we talk about all the policies that are made by the crazy Democrats, right? They're taking agency away from people, both me and you, by taking our tax money, but also like they're they're enslaving essentially is a great term for it, people onto the system, because you can't, like, typically you get on the system and it's really hard to get off the system, right? And so they're sticking people. Yes, in the short term, some people have food to eat that might not otherwise have food to eat. But the reality is the long-term end result of that is you get people who are stuck and can't ever escape. And you get people who are having stuff robbed from them that they worked hard for. And that's wrong. And that's the reality. Like, and we're about empowering people. We want people to be better off overall, not okay in the short term. Like sometimes that hunger, and I'm not talking actual physical hunger is part of it, but sometimes that hunger is actually what people need in order to drive them to achieve. And it seems like the other side wants to rob people of the opportunity to achieve. Anyway, that's one of the areas where I think we need to, we're the party of empowerment. We are the party of the people, and we're the party of empowerment.
Right. Yeah. We believe in creating an economy that allows people to be able to thrive, to be able to achieve their dreams by not overregulating and not overtaxing, by allowing them to keep more of their own money to make their own choices. And like you said, it's that sort of that desire to succeed that's what makes America such a unique nation, is that we want people to achieve. People come here because they want to achieve that dream. There's no rigid class system in America. There's no you're not confined by your current circumstances. I think it was Winston Churchill that said that America is a bunch of temporarily embarrassed millionaires, people that just don't have the money at the time, but they're eventually going to be millionaires. Is how that's the American spirit, that, or at least it always was, and I believe we can be that country again. That belief that someone who has a dream can create a life for themselves by being able to find access to education or access to opportunity. And we've seen that. Really, you look at our candidates for governor, there's a few of them running that have really embodied that did not come from a background of a really wealthy family, but have worked hard. In fact, I can think of I think that there's at least 3 or 4 of them right off the top of my head that have certainly been able to do that. That when you look at their personal story, as people start to hear their story of guys that just through hard work and dedication and belief in themselves were able to build themselves into a successful company, and a few of them certainly in a case where they came from a very modest means. Whereas you look at the Democratic side of the aisle, you got grifters like Troy Jackson that started off with that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I don't know that that's well documented, but he's never wanted for anything, and he's always been, he's been able to suckle off the teat of taxpayers for the last 20 years.
Yeah, well, no, I think you're right about the governors on our side. Like, I'd say all of them. Like, you could make an argument that obviously Jonathan Bush was obviously he's one of the Bushes, right? So he had access to money, but he didn't just take their money, right? He went and built a company of his own, right? So even he achieved something and worked hard and made something of himself, and he didn't just sit back on other people. But Robert Wessels, a modest guy, worked hard. Worked in management with a retail company for many years, had a personal farm, and he just worked really hard for his whole life and provided for his family. And then you've got Ben Midgley is one of the ones who I think a lot of great stories here, but this is a good one, right? It started off on welfare. He was getting food stamps in order to be able to afford to live when he was in his 20s, and started working in the fitness industry, cleaning gym equipment. Eventually became the president of Planet Fitness, the CEO of Crunch Fitness, the biggest franchise. Like he went from there to there, right? And then you have Owen McCarthy, grew up in a trailer, right? And just started his own fintech company, essentially not fintech, but tech, healthcare technology company that is doing incredible things, that are really helping a lot of people. And he did a good job making some money doing that. David Jones never went to college, started out poor, worked in construction. Then he started to own his own construction company and became, very, very successful doing that. And now he does real estate. I don't know a lot about Garrett Mason's story, but I don't think he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth either.
No. Garrett was. Garrett's parents are both. He was born in a working class family. His story is very similar to mine, a working class family. He went to his parents sacrificed so he could go to a local Christian school here in Turner, so he could learn, with his values and grow up with those values. And, got elected to the state Senate he worked really hard to beat a 6-term incumbent in the state Senate seat. And believe me, a lot of us didn't think he was going to be successful. And he worked hard to knock off a long-term state senator. And certainly what he has done in business sense as well. He's also someone who has worked hard to get to where he is, as has, even Bob, I should say it that way, but Bobby Charles as well, a constituent of mine currently in Leeds. He was a guy that he's told his story, worked hard, went to school, was able to get a job rising through the State Department, not, some very important jobs that he's held over the years, that with his experience, certainly was not born into wealth there. Whereas you look at their side, you got Angus King Jr., you've got Hannah Pingree. I mean, I don't know much about Shenna's background myself. I think she might be one of the few, but I mean, like I said, Troy Jackson, it is the biggest lie that guy is some sort of working class hero. I mean, that is just the greatest lie.
I want to be fair, and I think we may have forgotten one other Republican gubernatorial candidates in Jim Libby, who I don't think he was born wealthy either. I think he worked really hard. Work and even still, like, as doing his time, that's kind of what it is being in Augusta, right? But doing his time in Augusta, he's been an educator for many years, has done some stuff in business as well, worked in business, and like coach sports and stuff like that. So yeah, like we've got a lot of really great people who had to work hard and achieve in order to be successful, but it didn't come easy to them. They didn't have easy access to things over against what the Democrat Party has to offer, and it really doesn't have anything to offer at this point, and that's kind of the long and short. But yeah, well, thanks, Josh, for continuing to serve the people of Maine, and wanting to continue to do that. I understand you have a primary. We don't need to get into those details, but like you're hoping to win that primary so you can continue to the seat that if you win the primary, is it a safely conservative seat?
It's a pretty solid Republican seat. I mean, it's pretty much every town in there votes overwhelmingly Republican, and particularly in legislative races. Like Turner has always been a Republican town, but you want to talk about the transition of our party over the last 20 something years. Livermore Falls, which border me, were always mill towns, a lot of union workers. They're now solidly Republican. It's a lot of working class people, but they're solidly Republican because they realize that the Republican Party now does represent the working class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. We represent the working class, and we also want to empower people. And there are many other things: freedom, freedom of religion, freedom in general, medical freedom, actual health care. Anyway, so there's lots of reasons to vote Republican, obviously, and I'm mostly preaching to the choir because I know most people do that. But I think it's important to think about these things, especially if we're having conversations with people and trying to convince people why the Republican Party makes sense. It's helpful to kind of have these tools. But yeah, thank you again for running, and thank you for coming on, joining the Muddy Waters podcast. And people, if you're still watching out there, like, share, subscribe. There will be shorts from this. It's really helpful to help grow the movement, to do that. Like, there's that little thing of liking, sharing, and subscribing and telling somebody else about it actually has an impact. I know that people say that. Also, if you want to buy some cool merch just for fun, go to muddywaters.us. You can see all the old podcasts there, but also there's some merchandise, including the Clearstream coffee. So feel free to check that out if you're interested. Buy mugs, whatever. I've got the hats and all these fun things. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you back here. Probably it's next week. We'll be back on next week. Thanks so much.